Hey guys, welcome to my Arcane Mage guide for patch 10.15. This is part 3. This will be the video analysis, I suppose, of my own VOD. This is just me hitting a dummy on PTR. Yeah, hopefully it will help you out by analyzing stuff. I'll be continuously pausing and talking about things as I go. There might be a mistake or two here that I left in just in case, just like showcase what's going on, but yeah. Okay. So once again, we're going to start off with our evocate, right? You'll notice it's a lot faster on 10.15. It's like half the speed. Our opener is going to be Arcane Blast Orb. And then normally you have to cast an extra Arcane Blast because we should be at 3 stacks because Arcane Blast and Orb gives us 3 charges, right? Arcane Blast gives us 1, Orb gives us 2. But there's currently a bug with Siphon Storm where it's still giving us a 4th Arcane charge. So if that's still live, then you don't need to cast an extra one. But if it's not live, then you do cast an extra Arcane Blast. We're going to Radiant Spark into Nether Tempest, into Arcane Surge, into Barrage Touch. I'm lazy with my macro. I have a bad macro. Optimally, you should be doing Mana Gem Barrage, Touch, and then Trinket Arcane Blast. And I'll post those macros in the description once again. Or I guess they're in the description of the previous video, so make sure you check those out. But all I do, I have them everything bound together. Technically, if you have everything bound together, you should do it to Arcane Blast. So then you press it after touch. I'm lazy, so it's before my barrage. It's like 0.3% DPS. I don't know. I didn't want to change my muscle memory, but yeah, I don't play this spec much anymore. And then you do your 3 Arcane Blasts. So you finish your Spark phase, and now we're in our touch phase, right? So Missile, Blast, Blast, Missile, Blast, Blast, Missile, Blast, Blast. Alright, so now we're getting towards the end of our Touch of the Magi. So now I'm going to be starting to look for Presence of Mind timing. If you recall, I talked about how optimally you do it when there is 1 point something global cooldowns. Simpler, you do it when there is less than 1 global cooldown. How do you track the global cooldown? My weak aura package plugin, shameless plug, tracks Touch of the Magi timing in global cooldowns, in whole global cooldowns, I should say. So for example, right here, when I see 2, I know there's 2 global cooldowns, like 2 point something global cooldowns remaining. That's how you track it. So you'll see here, I do my blast, and then I do palm, blast, blast. For what it's worth, in Double Lust, your sequence is 100% scripted because of Double Lust. You should always be ending with Missile, Blast, Palm, Blast, Blast if you're doing it correctly. It's very tight. The timing you have to fit that 1 extra blast at the end, not to get too complicated, but it's dictated by the Arcane Barrage travel time before you press touch. So if I rewind a little bit to here, when you press barrage, see I'm delaying my touch a little bit. I'm not pressing it instantly. That delay between barrage and touch dictates how much time you have at the very end. If you do them instantly, you have like 0.01 seconds to fit in that last blast, which is obviously not good. So give yourself some time. Obviously, don't miss the barrage in your touch, but yeah, that's a little secret tip that many people don't know about, that I've been harping on about in my Discord. But yeah, so it's going to be Missile, Blast, Palm, Blast, Blast at the end. That's always only for Double Lust, but it will always only be in Double Lust, right? Every time you're in Double Lust, this rotation is possible. Yeah. Anyway, once again, we keep going. Missile, Blast, Blast, Missile, Blast, Blast. Notice my Surge expires just like I said before Siphon Storm, very normal. But we want to keep going until Siphon Storm is over. Siphon Storm is this over here. Now, I mentioned that you can keep going before you're shifting power if you have impetus up until Touch of the Magi is about 17 seconds remaining on its cooldown. I wasn't tracking impetus on my weak auras here, so I didn't do it, but you can see it's actually active for 5 seconds. So this shifting power that I'm about to cast, technically I could have waited. If you see why, you'll notice why here. I finished my shifting power, I have 2 seconds of impetus, now I get to do damage for 2 seconds. Why cast shifting power in impetus when I could have just waited, right? It's not like I can start my burst anyway. So yeah, you'll see here I'm just filling though. Missile, Blast, Blast. Notice that I kind of let my missile keep going there at the very end just because my touch is almost ready. So I know I'm going to start my burst. And I wasn't sure if I could start my burst or not if I clipped it. So I just kind of let it keep casting so I can do Radiant Spark, Nether Tempest. I hesitated there. This is a mistake. I should have just cast Barrage Touch. I instead cast Arcane Blast Barrage Touch. Just because, you know, I don't want to sit here doing nothing. So yeah, Arcane Blast Barrage Touch. This is a mistake like I talked about. What I should have done is done one Arcane Blast after the missiles earlier. And then that would have given my Touch of the Magi more time to come back. Right? Just to be more clear, the reason I didn't Barrage Touch is because if I Barrage and my Touch is not ready, then I'm just barraging into nothing, right? Which is not ideal. If you're ever in this situation, doing one Arcane Blast before you barrage is probably more worthwhile than to just AFK, obviously, right? It's definitely more worthwhile than to just AFK. However, don't be in this situation, right? I find this situation is more common when you're in double lust than not, just because of the extra haste you have. Anyway, I end up having to do 3 Arcane Blasts here instead of 4. Remember, it all comes down to your Radiant Spark vulnerability stacks. Because I did that one extra Arcane Blast earlier, that's why I only had to do 3 here instead of 4. But that's a mistake, and you'll see that later on in this VOD. You should normally have to do 4. After the 4, and my Radiant Spark vulnerability is done, you see I don't have clear casting. So Forgy, what do? Well, you only have 2 buttons, so you're just gonna have to keep pressing Arcane Blast, right? Not much else you can do. Arcane Blast, oh, I got a missile proc. Okay, so I can now missile blast. I full channeled my missile here even though I'm above 30% mana because I know my mana is gonna be rough in double lust. So my threshold when I'm in double lust is a little higher than 30% usually, especially depending on the time. It kind of just comes by experience. I'm gonna say like maybe 40% at this current stage for me, but that just comes down to like, you know, your time in your cooldowns. If you're 40% mana or like 35% mana, but it's like 10 seconds later, it doesn't matter. Like you can keep clipping. But I know here that I'm a bit more in trouble with my mana. Missile Blast. If you'll notice, I didn't use my Presence of Mind into my Touch of the Magi. The main reason is because Presence of Mind is a 45-second cooldown, but technically because it has 2 charges and the cooldown only starts after the 2 charges, it's really more like a 47-second cooldown based on when you first pressed it. I know if I press it here, I'm going to be delaying Presence of Mind in my big burn, which is not great. And the reason comes down to the fact that I was doing this on cooldown, and especially because of the fact that I stalled. I started so early that I had to even do an Arcane Blast before I did my Barrage Touch. So this is why I was really tight here. Normally it's not this tight. You'll see that later in the video. Now I just keep going. My mana's in the dumpster right now, as it will be, right, when you're playing with double lust. So now I'm in my okay, my mana is I need to start conserving. So I'm like 10% mana. I start applying my Nether Tempest. I have a missile. I just cast it because I don't have Nether Precision yet. Now I'm going to do Blast, and I'm going to see what happens. So I Blast. Now I have nothing. I have 8% mana. I can probably do one more Blast, right? But it's going to be kind of risky, so I decided to instead go for the Barrage. Why Barrage instead of Blast? I know my Evocate is 13 seconds away. If I go one more Blast and then Barrage, let's say down the line I get a Missile proc. I might not be able to use both of the Nether Precision stacks if I do that. So I decided to Barrage actually one Arcane Blast early just in case. And you might see that working out in a little bit. I Orb, Blast. My Nether Tempest is down and I'm 10% mana, so I apply it again. I have nothing, so I decided to just go one more Arcane Blast because I have mana for 2 at this point. Blast, I get a missile proc. Obviously, I didn't know I was going to get a missile proc, so what I decided to go for was a Ice Nova here. This is probably worth it when Evocate is really low cooldown like it is for me right now. When you have absolutely nothing else, Nether Tempest is already on the target for a very long duration now remaining still. You can throw out an Ice Nova. If my Evocate was like a 10-second cooldown here, you would just throw another Barrage out. But luckily, I Ice Nova and then I get a Missile. So I get to Missile, Blast. Now watch, after the second Blast, I don't have mana for another. If I blasted that one time way earlier, I wouldn't be able to do this Blast, right? And I would waste one Nether Precision. That's why. Anyway, Evocate is up. I'm not going to be playing around. I applied Nether Tempest there because of the dummy. I wanted to keep in combat. In reality, it would have just evocated. I don't know why I cast one more Arcane Blast. That's a mistake, but it's okay. Technically, it's not the worst mistake ever, but yeah. I evocate. After my evocate, I want a Missile Blast, but instead, my cooldowns are up. So what do? I missile, and then I'm going to Radiant Spark, Nether Tempest, and go into my Arcane Surge. If you notice, I full channeled my missile here for the exact same reason that I did earlier before my mini burn. Because I wanted it to buff my... Like, I wanted to stall a little bit more time before I start my cooldowns. You'll see here right after my Radiant Spark Nether Tempest, my Arcane Surge barely comes off cooldown. If I didn't full channel, maybe it wouldn't have come off cooldown. It would have been very, very tight. I don't want to take that risk, and I knew this was going to happen, so I did full channel that missile just to explain why that full channel missile is there. Very min-max tool, but yeah. The great thing about that missile, though, that we did cast a missile before our burst, is now we have Nether Precision for our burst, right? It's going to be able to fit for at least one, maybe two Arcane Blasts. Surge, Barrage, Touch. Yeah, I think I can only fit one Arcane Blast in here. So you see I cast one and the second one's going to expire. See that? The green dot in the middle disappeared before my Arcane Blast finished, which means I only fit one. But nonetheless, it was still okay. Still benefited from it. But yeah, we're still doing just 3 Arcane Blasts, right, in our big burn, then Missile, Blast, Blast. Notice, if you have 3 clear casting missiles and you're still meant to blast, you just ignore the clear casting missiles. You just keep doing your rotation, right? Missile, Blast, Blast, no matter what. Missile, Blast, Blast, Missile, Blast. Now I see 1. So I know I have 1 whole GCD. So I know now I'm going to Presence of Mind after this cast. So I'm going to Presence of Mind, Arcane Blast, and it barely fits right before the Touch of the Magi explodes. Very barely. But that's the timing there. And then yeah, just keep going. Missile, Blast, Blast, Missile, Blast, Blast. Siphon Storm is over. Do I have Impetus? No. Okay, Shifting Power straight away. 2 Arcane Blasts because I have nothing to do. Radiant Spark, Nether Tempest, Barrage, Touch. Yeah. Very basic. Typically, you can start this Radiant Spark, Nether Tempest sequence when Touch of the Magi is roughly around 2 seconds on cooldown for the mini burn. You'll notice here, let me rewind it a little bit. See, I'm keeping going. I'm thinking like, okay, 3 seconds. I know that's too short, so I do one more. After this one, I know I'm safe. See, Radiant Spark, Nether Tempest, Barrage, Touch. It comes off barely in time. Maybe could have done it 1 second earlier. I still think that extra blast was the correct call. Especially since 1 second leeway is probably a good thing for Presence of Mind, like I talked about already. Okay, so now I'm doing it properly this time. We have Vulnerability 1 on Touch the Magi, so we need to cast 4 blasts, right? In our mini burn. 4, not 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Missile, Blast, Blast. Blast, Blast, Missile, Palm, Blast, Blast. Once again, very barely fit. If I didn't give myself that 1 second leeway with Touch earlier, that probably wouldn't have worked. And it would have messed up with my Palm Surge for the next one. So probably best to give myself that 1 second leeway. But yeah. Okay, Missile, Blast, Blast, Missile, Blast, Blast. And I'm just repeating that. Notice, I've been clipping this whole time. Until now, I'm 30% mana, so now I'm not going to clip anymore. I'm going to let it channel. And I'm not applying Nether Tempest yet as well, because I'm not that down bad with mana yet. Once I hit like 10%-ish, then I'll start applying it. I can do one more. I figured, okay, I can do one more. As I'm casting this, I'm thinking, okay, I have Evocate in 3 seconds. I have missiles ready, but Touch is quite far. I could probably Evocate if I wanted to. I decided to not, I think, and I instead missile into another Tempest. And then I do 1 Arcane Blast. I did another missile because I got a proc, and now I'm okay to evocate. I should have evocated that GCD there. So once again, recall, what's the problem with me delaying this evocate? I did milk more of my Siphon Storm because now I'm going to have more Siphon Storm, right? 6 seconds Touch of the Magi is the limit for Siphon Storm. Once you have 6 seconds on Touch cooldown, you want to evocate. But what is, like to milk Siphon Storm value, right? But what is the downside here? The big downside here is now my next evocate is going to be like later in my cooldowns. If I had evocated and spent like a good 5-6 seconds blasting before my surge, then my evocate would come up 6 seconds earlier, and my mana would be better because remember, your mana is always going to go full when you surge, right? So you're going to like evocate, let's say I spend like 10 seconds, hypothetically, it's not going to be 10 seconds, but hypothetically, and then you do a surge. Now you only need to deal with like a 10-second shorter window until your next evocate than what I'm doing right now. This is a choice that you have to make. Usually sending evocate on cooldown is, I believe, what the sim does. You don't want to sweat it too much, but there is some value in delaying. Just know that if you don't need the mana that badly. I know I'm probably not going to need the mana that badly, so yeah. Anyway, Radiant Spark, Nether Tempest, Surge, Barrage, Touch. 3 blasts to 3. Missile, Blast, Blast. Missile, Blast. And then see, I have 1 left, 1 GCD left in Touch of the Magi. So I palm, Blast. And then the second one barely fits. See that? It's so tight. But, you know, you can time it consistently when you have a good weak aura like mine. Missile, Blast, Blast. And we're just repeating that cycle. Now, something important to note. My trinket just came up. People ask, Forgy, do you delay this surge that I just did for your trinket? Most of the time, 99.9% of the time, no. I'm not going to say 100 because very rarely do you do this. But 99.9% of the time, no. If you're doing any kind of content that, no offense, but you're probably watching a guide for, you're probably not going to need to delay a surge for your Iridius fragment. Because usually that's like 0.1 DPS squeezing for like specific kill times on specific fights that requires perfect execution. Don't do it. Just send your surge. Your Iridius fragment will be there for the next burn. So yeah, Missile, Blast, Blast. We're going to keep doing the normal stuff. Siphon Storm is over. Do I have Impetus? No, I do not, so I'm good to Shifting Power. I have 4 seconds, so I Missile, Blast, Blast. I blast once and I see my Touch of the Magi is pretty short, so I go for the Radiant Spark, Nether Tempest, Barrage, Touch. Notice this is something kind of important. I mean, I haven't mentioned it up until now. I mentioned it a little bit, but don't just slam your Touch the moment Radiant Spark is up. Milk it, because it gives you extra time for your presence of mind. It's not a DPS loss, right? Like, look here. I'll rewind it a little bit. See, I barrage and I wait a little bit before my touch. This is important because if you recall earlier, I said that the time towards the end of the touch that you have for your palm blasts is dictated by the time that you wait before you apply your Touch of the Magi after your barrage. Don't milk it too much. You know, I do have a weak aura showing me the travel time of barrage based on my distance. It's like this purple bar that appears. See this? This isn't the travel time. So I typically don't want to wait longer than this white tick. Sometimes even halfway is enough. Usually halfway is enough. But yeah, just barrage. Don't barrage too early. Yeah, 4 blasts, right? We're in mini burn, missile, blast, blast. My clear casting is barely running out. Some weird stuff happens here with my cast bar. I don't know why it does this, but yeah. I'm gonna go into a palm blast here. Unfortunately, because I was working on cooldown, like I said, presence of mind cooldown is like 47 seconds, roughly. So here I'm a little delayed. My presence of mind wasn't up when I had 1 point something, so I decided to just skip it. I could have casted it here, after this cast or before this cast. But that might delay me for my big burn, and I would rather have it for the big burn, so I decided to just skip it. Missile, blast, blast. Missile, blast, blast. And we're just going to keep repeating that. Now, a new thing. Mana gem, I don't have any more. We need to craft it, right? This is the greatest time to craft it. Ideally, you wait for impetus to fall off. Like I said, I'm not tracking it. I will be when this goes live if I play Arcane. You definitely want to track impetus. But yeah, so press your Conjure Mana Gem. A great place, by the way, small tip to track impetus is track your impetus in the same location as your Siphon Storm. Because you're never going to make decisions around impetus unless Siphon Storm is not up. Whether that means for your Mana Gem crafting or for your Shifting Power. So just put it under your Siphon Storm, like tracking weak aura, right? Just put 2 on top of each other. Have the strata of one lower than the strata of your impetus lower than your Siphon Storm. UI saving tip, space saving tip. But yeah, we craft our Mana Gem. Missile, blast, blast. If I had evocated early before, I would have evocate by now, but I don't. So I have to keep going here. Missile, blast, blast. I apply Nether Tempest. I missile, blast. Now I can evocate. All in all, I think here was probably I could have evocated earlier, like in the previous one, like 1 or 2 seconds earlier, and I could have evocated here because of that 1 to 2 seconds earlier. So I would have skipped the last Nether Tempest, but I had to do it for the dummy anyway, so it worked out for me. Once again, Radiant Spark, Surge, Barrage, Touch. See, now we have our Iridius fragment for this burst. Forgy, I have less than 15 seconds. Should I delay? Should I delay Surge for Lust? Once again, my young Padawan, you do not. Hold this for your next burst. This time, it's more acceptable to hold sometimes based on the fight duration. If it's your last burst of the fight and you will not get a lust with a burst later on, then you can hold. This happens on Magmarak specifically. If you do not have Blessings of Autumn, you actually do hold your Surge for your lust. Forgy, what do you do if you're holding? I don't have mana. You try to milk as much as your mana as you can, and then you evocate, and then just spend mana before you Surge. It's okay. Don't be afraid. Siphon Storm is like our weakest cooldown, basically. So, it's something we play around a little bit, but shouldn't make you sit at low mana, at 0 mana, casting like Ice Novas and Barrages and 0 stack Arcane Charges just because you want to save Siphon Storm. Just evocate, fuck it. Just do it and just burn some mana, and when Lust is ready, you can send your burst. It's fine. So we're gonna finish our burst here. 3 Arcane Blasts, Missile, Blast Blast, Missile, Blast, Palm Blast Blast. Yep, normal stuff. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much everything. I mean my lust is up. Obviously, if in a 5-minute dummy sim test, I would press lust by now because I'm not gonna get a second burst, or I could wait for my mini burn, whatever. But in a real fight, you'd be holding this lust for later. Can keep going till Siphon Storm. Is impetus up? Nope. Okay, so shifting power. Right now I know I have like 3 to 5 seconds. Not even. It's like 2 seconds. I Missile Blast, Radiant Spark, Nether Tempest, Barrage, Touch. Funny thing I actually just kind of realized. Almost always it's better to, if like it's completely fine to Missile Blast and then start your burst because your second Nether Precision is not gonna last anyway. So it's actually quite efficient to do that. Not saying you should delay your cooldowns for it, but yeah, just something I guess in mind to keep. You don't need to squeeze out and do weird shit for the double Nether position for your burst. You'll see here I do one cast and then I don't think I get the second cast off in time. I mean I don't have the buff, so you wouldn't be able to tell, but I had 2 seconds remaining on my first cast, so 4 blasts, Missile Blast Blast. Yeah, I mean I'm a broken record at this point with the Missile Blast Blast, Palm Blast Blast. That's basically the whole rotation. I hope this has been illuminating. I hope I've talked about everything. Once again, I'll post macros for the mana gem stuff and all that in the description of the second video, not this one. I guess I could copy them and paste them here or something. If you have any questions about Arcane that I've not talked about, I've not explained, you think I did a bad job on, please let me know in the comments. I'll do my best. If you've made it this far, you clearly enjoy my content to sit through almost 45 minutes of it. I do recommend you join my Discord. I am very, very active, very, very, I talk a lot, I respond. Sometimes I look at logs. There's a lot of smart people in there as well, so make sure you join. But thank you for watching this guide. If there's any updates or anything like that, I'll probably make a video about them for updates to the rotation and all that. But yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time, fellas. Peace.